and welcome to the Dailies, the morning program where we keep you updated with what is happening from our Nigerian newspaper. Of course, we've seen that finally Egypt have opened the border so Nigeria can actually, Nigerians that are stranded can actually start coming back home. Also, we have seen the speech coming from the president-elect where he's promising, workers, that they will get beyond just minimum wage. And also, we have another speech coming from the governor of Edo State where he feels that maybe from June, workers will not be getting their salaries based on some reasons, which we will let you know as we take the papers further. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham. Of course, I have my co-host Rachel Tanzi with me. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Sarah.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
You look fabulous this morning.
Thank you. I can say the same for you, Sarah.
Thank you. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can do well to drop your comment or contribution on any story that is of interest to you. And we'll quickly run through the paper, starting with the Daily Sun, which Rachel will be taking us through.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, I'll fight until I regain my mandate, a statement coming from Peter Obi. And the big story, Egypt opens border for fleeing Nigerian students. This is still on the evacuation going on in Sudan. Buhari engages President Sisi, and you can find the details on page 26. And on the 10th National Assembly, Senate leadership frustrates plan to alter own rules as lawmakers keep vigil. And on JAM UTME, JAM announces date of release of results reschedules UTME for some candidates. Workers hail Uzodinma back his second term bid. APC leadership crisis suspend Mir Lukman Diaz and WC. National Assembly members must remain alert, reject grazing reserve bill. This is coming from Autumn, and you can find the details on page 28. Ugwai hands over Medical Diagnostic Center to NSIA. The details can be found on page 28. And on May Day, Tinubu promises workers goodies. The writer following that declares, I will give you more than minimum wage. Buhari advises incoming government to respect workers' rights. The details can be found on page 6 and 26. And at the downside of the paper, police trail kidnappers of 2 Catholic priests in Delta. We have picture stories showing President Nigerian Labour Congress Joe Ajaro with presidential candidate Labour Party Peter Obi and other past and present Labour leaders during the May Day celebration at Eagle Square, Abuja yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
And on Blueprint newspaper, we're going to start with the strike. Resident doctors demand ridiculous coming from the Labour Minister Ngige. And he says they have option to leave the country. No apologies for my decision in trade dispute. You can find more of that story. And I think it's important, Rachel. We're saying the Minister of Labour saying they have option to leave the country. This is not supposed to be heard of.
It's not.
We've had issues of our doctors leaving the country. And just recently, where we saw the National Assembly trying to pass a bill saying that for you as a Nigerian doctor to leave the country, you must practice for like about 5 years. And we saw the leaders from the medical association coming out to say that that is really ridiculous. We shouldn't be having things like this. Rather than us saying that whatever this resident, of course, presently they are giving the government 2 weeks ultimatum because they are planning to go on strike. And you know what it means to be on strike?
Yes.
When we have lecturers going on strike, we have resident doctors going on strike. Already workers are lamenting their welfare is not well taken care of. So I think at a time like this, it's very important that we see what can we do to make the lives of our doctors, give them a comfortable atmosphere to actually work, give them the allowance that is rightly belong to them. We're looking at hazard allowance. We're having meningitis on this skyrocketing every day. We're having the issue of Lassa fever. We still have the monkeypox. We still have the cholera. We still have so many illnesses, and at the end of the day, most of these resident doctors are at the forefront because before you even get to diagnose and know what is really the problem, it's either you're already contaminated with it, you have already contact with disease.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that rather than saying they have options, says they have option to leave the country, let us see what can we do for our doctors to stay back in the country. And you remember we were having a conversation, I don't know whether it was behind the camera or while in the studio, where I said that there are countries that make money from their
Yeah,
doctors
we've said that
practicing
countless
outside the
times
country.
yesterday, yes.
Because for every doctor that is outside the shore, the country should benefit from it at the end of the day. So we keep talking about brain drain, and then at the end of the day, what are we doing as a country to make sure that, yes, even if our doctors are leaving, they are not leaving because the environment is not conducive, but they are leaving because we have so many doctors to actually cater. But then how many? We're having over 1,000 patients or 10,000 patients to a doctor.
Yeah.
And the more they leave, at the end of the day, we'll not be having 20,000 patients to a doctor at the end of the day. Not only are the doctors leaving, midwives are leaving, nurses are leaving, even other occupations are leaving, professional courses are also leaving. So I think it's high time that rather than saying they can leave the country, as a minister, it is your responsibility to see how you can bring these people together. If you are the Minister of Labor and Employment, you know what that means, right? So you have to bring these people together and say, okay, what do you people want? Okay, this is what the country have to offer at this moment. Can we give you this while you work, and then we see how we can be able to. I think the doctors cannot be so heartless not to reason with the government, because of course, nobody in this country will say he or she does not know that Nigeria is actually broke as it is. So I just feel that this is not really sitting well with me personally, coming from the Minister of Labour and Employment.
Yes, Sele, this is, I keep saying it, a very sad statement coming from a minister, coming from someone who should be the pioneer of a better movement for Nigerian doctors, saying something like this. Now, the difference between government and private, for example, is that everything you get at a government institutional level is subsidized. Meaning when you go to a government hospital, for example, you get a cheaper treatment than when you go to a private hospital. What it means is that you get a subsidized rate of treatment in the government hospital because the government is covering for some of the expenses that they know if we were to put this on the citizens, they won't be able to pay for it. Now, I want to take this to our university. Now, majority of Nigerian doctors went to federal and government universities. Now, what that automatically means is that for the many years that they learned as doctors under the Nigerian Federal Institution, they had subsidized training. They paid subsidized fee for everything, because I believe a doctor, where a doctor is paying, let's say, $1 million in private university to study per semester, for a whole school, for a whole school session, our doctors in the federal government university and state at whatever level are not paying $1 million. I don't know precisely how much, because I know some states differ, but it's not up to that of private, meaning for every training they get, the government have subsidized their training, in as much as being a doctor, whether in federal, is not that cheap, but we wouldn't expect it. It's not as much as if you are in a private university. It means that the government have also invested in these children to become doctors, right? Sorry, I'm using children, but yeah, we are children growing up under the Nigeria government. Yes, exactly. And then for you to come out and say that they don't have to stay. So you have spent years as the government putting in your resources to producing doctors, and you feel that whenever they want to pack up and leave, they can go. And then you wonder, how then can we grow? If we are telling our wealth of knowledge and our investment that they can leave Nigeria, I don't know how he feels that this statement is okay in the first place for you to say it, because we need them here. So we can never have too many doctors. We can never have, it is one field that you can't say nurses are too much. It is one field you can't say doctors are too much. People are falling sick every single day. There is research going on, new medication being found, new treatment being found every day. When it comes to the medical line, things are evolving really fast. You can't say we have too many doctors. This is one field that you can't say the workers are too much, because we are in need of thousands and thousands and thousands of doctors every day. And to know that the federal government have invested into the life of this. Some of them are on scholarship, even abroad, and you tell them they shouldn't come back and all of that, and you wonder that, no, if we will have this mentality, no wonder we won't grow as a country, Sele, because there's no way we can tell ourselves that we have enough doctors. No, if there's anything that's enough doctors, then I believe that overseas they won't be needing us, because it means they have enough doctors there, then they won't be needing us. But no matter the number, they keep wanting us to go. How is it that there's so much part of so many thousands of doctors? Is because these other countries know that there can never be too many doctors, and they are in need of them a lot. So why would we sit down as a country and say something like they can go if they want to, when we know that there's no such things as too many doctors when it comes to the medical field? I just hope that we don't see these kind of things on our papers anymore, that such careless statements will not come out from people who are in the position to make sure that we are not even, that these doctors are taken care of, that we are not lacking these doctors when it comes to the hospitals and patients. And while we would have 10,000 to 1 doctor, 10,000 patients, there's no wonder we're having brain drain. And it's not about to stop until something is being done, until our doctors stop leaving the shores of Nigeria. Even if they stop leaving, it's not going to be enough until they come back before we can truly say perhaps the ratio will reduce and we'll no longer be having 10,000 to 1.
Course, Rachel,
Yes.
and as you're saying, no, I just remember I actually know how I enjoyed during my service year, because the state where I served and the way I was treated as a corps member, I knew that I would receive the most wonderful treatment, especially when I was ill. Free treatment, free. Everything was free for me, because I was, apart from the fact I was a corps member, but because of what was there. And this is what I want other people to enjoy. But in a situation like this, you have to pay, just like you say, if you're going to a government hospital, everything is being subsidized for you at the end of the day. And it's very sad that it's coming when workers are supposed to be pampered and also be given all the promises they need. So we hope that something will be done about that. Still on the Blueprint newspaper, Tinubu on Workers' Day: leadership will require tough, hard decision, assures of living wage. Tell workers I'm ready to fight your fight. Protect entrepreneurs, grow middle class, NBA tax Tinubu and governors-elect. Workers' Society backbone coming from D-Ray, and then we have NLC TUC vow to resist anti-workers policy. You can find all of that story on page 6. And on cancer scars, importation of Indomie noodles remain banned. So for those who are not really aware, Indomie noodles have been banned. So you can read more of that on page 5. And on Sudan, Buhari waits in Egypt, opens border for fleeing Nigerians. You can find that also on page 30. And on 2023 UTME, makeup exam hold May 6. That is coming from JAM. Lukman Diaz, APC says Adamu Omisore lack power to expel me. This is still on the internal crisis happening in the APC. Autumn to National Assembly. Reject grazing reserve bill under whatever disguise. God won't allow reversal of Kano New Emirate, coming from Ganduji. And then Nigeria records 897 Lassa fever cases, 154 deaths in 3 months. And this is why it's very important we take care of our doctors, because as this illness keep coming up, we know that we need to do something as a country. And that's all on the Blueprint newspaper.
On First News newspaper, why I want to be Senate President, coming from Apabio. May Day, my government will give you more than minimum wages. Tinubu promises workers, urges them to brace for tough decisions. Police DSS INEC joint panel invites suspended Adamawa wreck. NDDC $15 billion railway memorandum of understanding Yahoo deal. This is a statement coming from Timmy Frank. Says MD must be arrested, invite EFCC and ICPC. You can find the details inside the paper of First News newspaper. And the big story, finally, Egypt opens border for Nigerians fleeing Sudan. After Buhari's intervention, Egypt agrees to open border under stringent conditions. This is coming from the NIDCOM boss. And on cancer scare, NAFDAC bans importation of Indomie noodles. God won't allow anyone that will destroy Kano, New Emirates, Ganduje replies Konkoso. You can't expel me, APC Vice Chair tells Adamu. And on Workers' Day still, NLC demands 65 years retirement age. You can find the details inside the paper, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper with the big story, Tinubu promises tough decision. NLC demand new retirement age, with the writer saying Labour recommends 65 years retirement age, 40-year length of service. President-elect seek understanding, says hard decision coming soon. And let me read a little detail on that. Ahead of inauguration on May 29, the President-elect Bola Tinubu has promised to take tough and hard decisions to reposition the country for the benefit of citizens and workers. He solicited the People's Cooperation and support for his incoming administration in fighting poverty, ignorance, disease, disunity, and ethnic and religious hate, which he described as common enemies. The president-elect said this in a statement to commemorate the 2023 Workers' Day on Monday, just as the Nigerian Labour Congress demanded that the retirement age of civil servants should be raised to 65 years and the length of service to 40 years. The pledge by the former Lagos State governor is coming against the backdrop of high inflation, huge foreign debt, infrastructure deficit, high youth unemployment, and security confronting the country. In the statement titled President-elect Solidarity Message to Nigerian Workers on International Workers' Day, Tinubu said his Renew Hope agenda for a better Nigeria was a covenant he has prepared to keep. However, the former Lagos senator revealed that the ensuing weeks after his inauguration will require doggedness, as the public service reform he hopes to implement will require tough decisions. My plan for better welfare and working conditions are clearly spelled out in my Renew Hope agenda for a better Nigeria. It is a covenant born of conviction and one I am prepared to keep. So if you want to know more about what his speech is, for those who are not opportune to actually listen to the speech yesterday, you can do a flip to page 2 of the Punch newspaper and read more detail of what the president-elect is hoping to do for workers and Nigeria as a whole. Still on the Punch newspaper, NARD Forum as Ingege condemned doctors' entitlement mentality. You can find the story on page 41. Police, DSS, INEC joint panel invite suspended Adamawa wreck. And on subsidy, salary payment unlikely after June, says Obaseki. So we can see a contradiction. While the governor of Edo is feeling that it's not going to be possible, we're seeing here the president-elect is saying it's very possible for him to do something for workers. And I think that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, Nigeria's forex reserves lose $1.82 billion, inflows decline. This is coming from the Minister of Finance, and you can find the details on page 4. Government officials suspended over alleged salary padding. Strike notice by resident doctors observed, says Minister. JAMB to release UTME results today. And the big story, pay rise coming for health workers, lecturers, and others. The writer following that funding captured in this year's budget, says federal government. President-elect promises living wage. You can start with the story on the front page and continue on page 4. Ingige counters Obaseki over no cash to pay salary claim. 1,350 more Nigerians leave Khartoum. 27 buses land for Port of Sudan, and you can find the details on page 5. We have picture stories showing May Day celebrations over the country. At the downside of the paper, although APC suspends 30 for anti-party activities, ex-NBA President Wali free. The details can be found on page 25, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Leadership newspaper, as Osinbajo book launch Gowon Loan Current Government, you can find that on page 6. NAFDA takes noodle sample for investigation. You can find that too on page 6. Still on leadership newspaper, manufacturers spend 76.7 billion naira on alternative power in 6 months. And on APC crisis, Adamu Omisore lacked power to expel me. Coming from Lukman, you can find that on page 7. And on the 10th Senate, Akpabio meets PM President Muhammadu Buhari over ambition. Police invite Adamawa Rec who do over dramatic declaration. God won't allow anyone to tamper with Kanu Emirate, coming from Ganduji. And the big story, Tinubu raises workers' hope for living wage, says your fight will be my fight. We won't want broken promises. Federal government, states may not pay salaries from June. Obaseki 1. You can't speak for government, Labour tells Edo governor. And let me read a little on what he said about that. The Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, on Monday said the federal government might not be able to pay workers' salary beyond June 2023 without resorting to massively printing money or removing fuel subsidy. Obaseki discloses while delivering his address during the 2023 May Day celebration with the theme Workers' Right and Social Economic Justice, held at the Samuel Stadium in Benin City. The governor, who reassured the workers that his government will sustain reforms and projects to improve the welfare of workers and ensure better livelihood for the Edo people. He urged the workers in the country to shift from the tradition of reacting after policy that affect them have already been made. He therefore charged the workers to hold government accountable for their policy and programs. You can continue to read more of that on page 4 of the leadership. We have the picture story actually showing that we can see the Minister of Labor and Employment and others during the celebration of the Workers' Day, and that's all on the leadership.
On Vanguard newspaper, manufacturing output falls 9.7% to 6.67 trillion naira. The details can be found on page 19. IPPIS padding, OAGF suspends staff, anti-graft agencies launch investigations. We are committed to workers' welfare. This is coming from governors concerning May Day. It's Nigeria's weakness to allow Okorommadu serve jail term in UK. A statement coming from Gerba. And if you want to know the details, you can find it on page 28. Egypt opens border for Nigerian students fleeing Sudan, says the federal government. And the big story on the Vanguard, halt last-minute looting, Labour tax Buhari. Indicts outgoing governors, ministers, and others, insist on resisting further fuel price hike via subsidy removal. Tinubu promises salary increase, says I will give you a living wage. NBA asks Tinubu orders to protect entrepreneurs, grow middle class. Nigerian workers deserve better treatment, coming from the CAN president. Resist anti-democratic forces. This is coming from the PDP, tells workers, and we will continue our struggle to reclaim stolen mandate. A statement coming from the Labour Party, assuring workers, and you can find the details on page 3. JAMB fixes Saturday for candidates who missed exams. Still on cancer care, why we banned importation of Indomie noodles, coming from NAFDA. And for us, the noodles consumers, please, you can find the details on page 4. Police panel invites suspended Adamawa Rec over Guba poll roll. You can find the details on page 3. We have a column for sports, which you can find on page 3, and also for health on page 22. And on our oil market, Nigeria's average output drops by 7.6% to 1.3 million barrels per day. We had the minister and the boss of the NNPCL assuring us that we are going to increase, not much as OPEC has said, the quota, the amount daily should be reduced because they're trying to fight and see how the price of barrel can go high because it has been going low. And he assured us that we can reach the quota that OPEC has given us of 2 million barrels. They're 1.5 million barrels by then, and even saying we can go above, and we are seeing that we are still dropping, and we haven't even reached the minimum one in the past, and now we are still at 1.3 million barrels. And I hope that something is being done about it, because whether we like it or not, this affects our oil revenue, and we can see how allocations have been dropping even due to tax and all of that. And you can find the details of that on page 20. Southern Kaduna, 518 killed, 18 villages raised in Atiap chiefdom of in 6 years, and you can find the details on page 7. Troops rescue pregnant Chibok schoolgirl. The details can be found on page 2, and it's good to know that the rescue for Chibok girls are still going on despite the time that has been gone, and we will keep keeping our fingers crossed that nobody is being forgotten in Nigeria, that no matter how long it takes, everybody deserves to regain their freedom if they're under captive and still alive, and that we shouldn't sleep on our job. Even if it is 20 years later, freedom is still important, and one can still live a life of freedom and say, I can do something better than where I am. And that's all the news on the Vanguard newspaper.
Right, before we move further to other papers, we'd like to take a time out at this moment. Remember, we've looked at so many stories. We've heard the speech coming from the president-elect. We've also heard the speech coming from the governor of Edo State. We've also seen that NAFDAC have banned Indomie, and they have given reasons why they did that, because they're still, taking out some samples to see more about that. So when we come back from the break, we'll open the phone lines, and then we'd love to hear what your contribution, what your thoughts are concerning any story that is of interest to you. We'll be right back after this break. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television. We've been looking at various stories on the paper. We've heard the speech coming from the president-elect, and also that coming from the governor of Edo State. And then we've also heard the Minister of Labor and Employment actually telling, especially the medical workers, resident doctors, that they actually have an option of leaving the country because their demands are really ridiculous. So we'd love to hear what your thoughts are concerning this. Do you feel that the demand being made by the resident doctors is ridiculous? And then also we've seen about the attacks in southern Kaduna that has been going on for about 6 years now. So you know that a lot needs to be done. Apart from Kaduna, there have been unrest in various parts of the country. Troops have rescued some Chibok girls back, even though they're pregnant, but we are happy they're back home, and then we hope that all that is needed will be done. So many stories actually very interesting on the papers this morning. So we'd love to hear from you. What do you feel about all of the stories? Our numbers are displayed on your screen. You can call us. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, so we will be able to hear you clearly, and other viewers will love to also hear your contribution and add up to theirs. As they have Rachel with me in the studio. Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, let's look at the next paper, which is This Day newspaper. Coming from Obi. Contrary to reports, I was never arrested in London. Says he was only stopped from routine immigration checks. Labour Party crisis deepen as a Papa-led group holds neck tomorrow. Sanusi, it's Nigerians lost. Uzibanjo was not elected president. You can read more of that on page 33. Buhari charges successor to respect workers' rights. You can start reading that on the front page and on page 10. The big story, Ganduji to Kwankwaso, God will not allow anybody destroy our new Kanu Emirates. And then we have the picture story here showing Abdul Razak celebrates workers. Really a right step, and I hope that it's not just for May, but they will continue to be. Yes. And we have Obaseki saying government may be unable to pay salaries beyond June without removing fuel subsidy, massive printing of money. You can read more of that story inside the paper, and that's all in this day newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, workers demand better pay amid subsidy and debt concerns. The details can be found on page 6. World Health Organization issues alert as high-risk season for meningitis and others sets in, and due to the heat waves, you would like to do something concerning it, and you can find the details on page 4. Telecoms operators reject proposed supervision by NITDA. Stakeholders hail youth's hustling spirit, advocate innovation to curb unemployment. NAFDAC begins probe on safety of Indomie noodles today, says the Director General. New Emirates Council here to stay, Ganduje tells Concourse. So the details can be found on page 29, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
On Daily Asset newspaper, SEC blacklist 6 online trading platforms. So you want to know who are those 6 online trading platforms that have been blacklisted. You have to read that story on the front page and continue on page 2. The big story, explain your failure, stop bullying judiciary, Atiku tells Buhari. With the writer, Buhari scores self high in fight against insecurity and terrorism. You can read more of that story inside the paper. NLC TUC orders seek review of public servant retirement age. With the rider, lament poor wages, unpaid salary, workplace right abuse. 30,000 naira minimum wage no longer useful. And other stories on the Daily Asset, we have a Sudan crisis. Egypt open border for Nigerians fleeing Sudan. This is coming from the federal government. Federal government suspend top official over salary padding allegation. Police summons suspended Adamawa wreck over the poll. Kogi warns schools and individuals against exam malpractice. Dangote urges African countries to dismantle trade barriers to sustain growth and development. Downside of the paper, tragedy as deputy director dies at Niger interview venue. You can read more of that on page 6. We can still see the May Day march parade come workers. You can read more of that inside the paper. And that's all on Daily Assets.
On the Daily Times newspaper, telecoms workers threaten 3-day warning strike. And there's a violence affected towns in Kaduna, Benue protest tax security agencies on fairness, and you can find the details on page 2. SEC blacklists 6 online trading platforms. Northern senators elect strategize to clinch 10th Senate presidency. You can start with the story on the front page and continue inside the paper. Federal government may not be able to pay salaries after June, says Obaseki, as mixed reactions trail event nationwide. NAFDAC begins sampling of Indomie noodles over cancer-related substance. You can find the details on the front page and continue inside the paper. We have a protest by women saying under Brigadier General Timothy, Operation Safe Haven has compromised. And I believe this is due to the safety, despite us seeing the presence of the security agencies. When you're moving at the checkpoint, when you're moving to villages, you still see these military checkpoints, police checkpoints. However, there is still attacks going on in the villages, and you wonder, are they just there for show, or are they really doing their jobs? Why are we still having these attacks? And I know we've had callers in the past saying, the military in Nigeria and trying to tell us that these unknown gunmen, unknown herdsmen, Fulani terrorists and all of that, and the Boko Haram, are they trying to tell us that these people are more intelligent and sophisticated than them, that we have been having the same attacks on the same communities and nothing has been done? And I believe that this is this is why these women are saying that under this person's rule there has been a compromise, because a lot of things that should be done are not being done, and they don't understand the reason behind that. And that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
All right, let's look at the new National Star newspaper. No going back on Bauchi NEC meeting, says Apapa LP fraction. You can find that on page 17. 1.6 million household get 10,000 naira by monthly coming from the federal government. Bus conveying stranded Nigerians from Sudan catches fire. You can find that on page 9. Buhari bullying judiciary to uphold electoral hits, coming from Atiku. The big story, NLC cautioned judiciary against election petition pronouncements, vows to shame judges who compromise election process. I will fight for your welfare, Tinubu assures workers. Federal government probes IPPS after third-party payment platform breach. Soludo threatens salary slash for workers observing sit at home. You can find that on page 8. And on APC crisis, Lukman Diaz Adamu Omisuri says they lack powers to suspend me. Police, DSS, INEC joint panel summon suspended Adamawa Rec. JAM releases UTME results today. Federal government confirms lecturers, doctors will benefit from salary increase. We can find more of that on page 10. Before we move further, Rachel, still in the spirit of Workers' Day, let us start with 1.6 million household get 10,000 naira by monthly coming from the federal government. What's your take on this?
Well, honestly, I don't know, but a lot, right? When it comes to the standard of living in Nigeria needs to be done. And where I want to say is that I'm looking forward to a government, right, that talks about the real problem in Nigeria and tries to tackle it. So if we have enough farming, for example, and production of food, we won't be having food scarcity, neither will we be having hike in food price. There are seasons and periods that certain foods become more expensive than another.
True.
It shouldn't be like that. Automatically, this is a problem that if we can solve, people will not complain. I think before the show started, I clearly stated that I'm not comfortable with some promises that politicians and people in offices make, because we've seen over the years that this strategy has failed. Why do we want to keep doing the same thing in the same way and expecting a different output? Salaries have been increased over and over in Nigeria. This wouldn't be the first time we're seeing such promises. And when it eventually gets to be done, we find out that the standard of living keeps going down. What automatically tells us is that the problem in Nigeria is not the minimum wage or what people earn, but we are finding the issue of inflation eating up. We have a caller on the line.
Receive the call. Hello, good morning.
Dan.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, from Lagos.
All
How
right.
are you? Sele, how are you doing?
We're doing fine.
I'm just wondering about the issue of these Egyptians that opened their door widely for China people, but unfortunately they refuse to open door for our home people in Africa here. We just heard that they just consider to open door for Nigerians. I don't know how terrible African to Africans. I don't know what is happening. Maybe we have committed a lot of atrocities over there. It's only God that knows. This is Africa. We are all EU. I mean, we are all AU. You see the atrocity? Eh? It's only God that can deliver in this Africa. Oh. God bless you.
Thank you very much. All right, yes, Celia, as I was saying, now it shows us obviously that the increment in salaries are not the way forward, because we have other things threatening our economy that, trust me, Celia, if these things could be fixed, minimum wage will not be a problem. That you will be shocked that if, imagine, Celia, if I can go to the market with 5,000 and be able to feed a family of 6, for instance. Now it means that with my 30,000 naira, I'll be living okay, because out of 30,000 naira, for instance, at the minimum wage, I will be able to feed my family of 6 with 5,000 naira. I don't think a person in that position will be clamoring and saying increase salary, because when he goes to the market and 1,000 naira can give him 10 measures of rice, for example, he will be okay. These are the things that are facing us, that I believe that the government needs to go to the root, because the salary is really at the surface. It is at the very top and the least of the problem, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, because it doesn't matter. There are people, Sele, who earn more than they did the previous year, but inflation had made it look like they earn less than what they did the previous year. That's how bad inflation can. And we won't dispute the fact that there's a global inflation, but when you look at the rate at which the inflation are going on in other countries, not compared to what we are facing in Nigeria in terms of inflation and how it has been going high. Not only are we facing inflation, but we are having our currency losing value every month. Weekly, we have a caller. Good morning.
My name is Blessing Untul.
Okay, good morning, Blessing.
So my dear, my contribution to this matter is, let's ask Obasanjo what is going on in Nigeria.
Okay.
Because Obasanjo know what Nigeria are going through. He knows every pain that Nigeria are going through, because he hides a big secret that not to let anyone know.
All right. Thank you very much, Blessing, that we should ask the former president of the country what is going on, because he knows some secret that he hides and Nigerians need to know. Whatever it is, I want to believe that he is not the only person in the position of knowing what is going on in Nigeria and the way forward. I think every administration has access to information, to data, and even to the resources and whatever should be done and what is going on in Nigeria. So Sele, I would like to say it's not surprising that we have families, millions of families, earning that little in this country. But I keep saying that when we go to the root of a problem and solve it there, this might not be the problem. This will take half of the problem away, because no matter what you earn, you will be able to afford for your basic needs. But the problem we're having is that we can't afford our basic needs. That's the problem. But imagine if you're in a system that regardless of how little or low you earn, you are able to cater for your basic need. You're able to pay for your health. You're able to live in a comfortable environment. You are secured. You have food, because I believe hunger is one of the major things. When people go to the market, that is where we know inflation. Nobody is aware that cars have gone high in prices, but everybody knows that tomatoes yesterday was 100 naira and today is 200, because these are the things basically that we face every day. So imagine an economy or system where we don't have staggering prices rather, that season in and season out, tomato is the same price, yam is the same price, yam is the same price, and we've been having these same prices for over 10 years. I want to believe that this wouldn't be a problem in the first place. However, let the government sit down and see what they will do, because you know what, today it will be 100,000 minimum wage, and tomorrow you're buying rice at 3,000 naira per measure, and then you find out that with 30,000 you can only get 10 measures of rice, and then you wonder, okay, am I really earning 100,000? Because now rice is 3,000 per measure. So these are kind of the things that should be looked into. And I'm not saying that the increment in salary is not important, but there is the real problem and it should be tackled.
You know, Rachel, the reason why I brought this up is because, just like you said, there are certain methods we have used and we have seen that it's not actually working. Paying 1.6 million households. Now, I don't know how the Nigerian government came with this number of Nigerians. Yeah. First time we had just 1 million Nigerians. Now we're having 1.6 million Nigerians. I can't remember how many million Nigerians will be given that $800 million palliative that came from the World Bank. Yes. But we're looking on how to share that money. I don't know if that is the money that will be giving 10,000 naira. That is for every 2 months, you get 10,000 naira. Now, just like you've actually helped the common man to know, let's just split this and see in a month, how much do I spend for feeding? How much do I spend for transportation to work? How about, let's talk about electricity tariff that is very high. Very high. Let's talk about water that I cannot even see water, even though I'm supposed to have access to it. These are basic things. These are not even things that the government should come and tell me I provide them because it is your responsibility. It is, yes. Now, we're not putting our eyes into the eyes of any administration, but we're just trying to bring out facts. This present administration have barely 28 days to vacate. Yeah. So I'm not taking anything to heart coming from the Minister of Labour. I'm not taking anything to heart coming from this present administration, because as far as Nigerians are concerned, they are gone. But now the assignment is for the incoming administration. What are you planning to do? Of course, eventually we can see meetings have been holding to see who is the Senate president. Very soon we will now start seeing nomination of ministers coming up based on your capability, I believe, and your competence. But then, just like you said, increase of salary is not really important. But to me, maybe it came at a point where we're looking at workers complaining. And you mentioned the fact of inflation, which of course. And I remember here we've tried, apart from the fact that we are the watchdog, we've tried as Nigerians too, because I'm first and foremost a Nigerian before I am what I'm practicing presently. One thing is for sure is the fact that we have to look inwardly. What can we do? I remember here, Richard, I stated the fact that CBN promised us that it would be 200 naira notes, 100 naira notes, 500, 50 naira, 10 naira will be in the ATM. Yeah. Till date, in fact, I think it was just during the cash scarcity that there was 200 naira. Presently, we don't even have 200. In fact, no 500 naira in the ATMs. It has 1,000 naira. And it's the old currency. Even though yesterday, CBN said they have started sharing the new news. What are we trying to see? We know the solutions to all of this thing. So why are we refusing to apply it? Just like the governor of Edo State, let us see Nigerians holding leaders accountable for certain policies. It's one thing for you to set a policy, excuse me, but it's another thing for you to make sure that you see this policy through. Is it realistic? Because I believe in realistic things. Don't just say things that will not happen. Just like you say, I should be able to buy tomatoes and yam, even though I know it's not possible. I know that when it's rainy season, tomatoes is more expensive because it's a perishable good, so it doesn't like so much water. So I wouldn't blame farmers when they sell tomatoes at a higher price in rainy season because of reasons based. Water
proof seller that we refuse to upgrade our farming.
Now, Rachel, where I'm coming in here is that how many farmers have access to improved seedlings? How many farmers? We're talking about loan. How many farmers have it? Very soon you will hear that the normal boiled meat you normally pass to buy at 15 naira. It's no longer 15 naira, Rachel.
It's no longer 50.
Why? Because, in fact, have you noticed that even the food you eat right now is no more sweet as it used to be? Fertilizer have destroyed all of. So many things are embedded in all of these things. So as Nigerians, it is our responsibility to hold our leaders responsible. I know that they are trying, but they need to do better. So we just hope that the government will actually take all of this things seriously. Rachel, I think we've talked a lot on this show today, and it's quite unfortunate that our time is quite spent. But we'll just continue. You can continue this conversation. Drop your comment on our Facebook page. A lot is going on. Hopefully tomorrow when the comments drop, we'll still take them and pick up this conversation, because as the day goes by, we definitely will be hearing on Nigerians coming back. We'll still be hearing on our workers, how is their welfare, our doctors. Of course, you'll be hoping to hear more of that. So we just expect you keep your fingers crossed. Drop your comments on our Facebook and YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. Thank you to our crew members and everybody that make this program a success. Until we come your way again tomorrow, have a blessed day ahead.